I'd give you some notes to follow up on our conversation after the last session. Some of the things we were doing with Elena, give you some of the ideas so that you can look for these sorts of things in play situations. Two situations are the standing and with I call it with perturbations, right? Giving her some interference to have her cope with rearranging herself to standing. The other one is the deep crawling motion here. So in this, you can see the idea is that the knee comes way up to the side, and it's coming out to the side, not just straight underneath her, but to the side. We talked about that and the importance of that spiraling motion in standing and in walking. So really what we're playing with here is coming up and down from getting onto and getting off of those, and doing that in a situation where the two legs are used very asymmetrically. Right? One leg is long, the other is bent, necessary for a walking pattern. So really what I'm doing is just using what she initiates and then putting modifications into that. And as much as we can get situations where she may be doing something strong with her arms, but she can do varied motions with her legs, helps to differentiate those things. See there again for a moment was the motion of the spiraling inward and outward with the legs. Later in our crawling, when you were in the room here, again, you can hear her yelling, "Stop, stop, stop." It's all part of this game of being a pesky little sister. She was so active and so contrary that well, we'll just use her resistance to generate some actions. And so again, getting her up into a position where we can do these alternate movements with the two legs. And if she's supporting herself on her hands or if she's on her elbows, either way, those are things that tend to produce a kind of indiscriminate tone in her legs, so to be able to start having her feel those distinct movements of her legs while she's doing the effort with her hands. It's very good. And I wanted to note also that you may see some movements that look like they could be stretches, but I'm not doing them in a range that's a stretch. They're with her knees all the way bent and feeling relationship between being able to bring her heels all the way up to her bottom and what's happening in there with her hips. I'm not pushing against the end of her limited movement. I know there are stretches that you do, but in this kind of context of wanting to learn the movement, the stretch is counterproductive. So there, as she initiates the movement, I'm just guiding it through to make it smooth and bring it into the full extent that she can, because she won't necessarily do that full extent herself. Part of it is getting her familiar with it, and part of it is just introducing the idea. Then we get these places where she starts to want to go, and I give her a stability within the hand to where she can push off on that. Again, planting that foot, waiting for her to push with that deeply bent knee. And of course you can see the relation of that to stair-stepping and all those kinds of activities. There we go. So you're pushing yourself away. It's very nice. This first section has been all about putting together the elements that she needs for walking and for standing. And here there's a section of playing with her in standing. Up to several different things here. One is we spent a fair amount of time having her just fall back into my lap. Fall back into my lap. I'm turning that into a game so that fall is not a failure. It's just part of the game. And then you see the other part is I'll get her to stand, and she has her standing strategies, and she has the things that she does. But I'm tending not to let her take my hands with her hands, and I'm giving her a little bit of an inclination to take that pelvis backwards, because I want her to feel what it's like to come into and out of a squatting type of arrangement there. One of the things that's been really firmly established is for learning a skill, the best thing is repetition with variations, right? So you want to have a structured kind of set of variations that work within a certain range. So here in her standing, she keeps wanting to get away. It's a great game. And all I'm doing is very lightly stopping her so that she has to reorganize her weight balance again. And we're just doing this over and over and over again. It works really nice in this sort of a game context. If she wasn't feeling contrary and silly and trying to get away, all this would just sort of be irritating and rude. And each time I bring her up, I stand her in a way that, again, there's some momentum to it. She needs to do that last little bit of regulating to bring herself up into a standing position. And to keep herself there and to initiate walking. All right, so another way of thinking about this is we're practicing over and over again. How does she create a weight shift that's going to allow her to be stable on one foot while bringing the other foot forward? Ties in very nicely with the theme of the deep crawling, where you're having one leg long and a support leg and doing a differentiated movement of the other leg coming forward. Nice. Well, you can see how she was able to go into that squat and bring herself back out of it. Again, even though we're working in standing, we're working really on the elements of it, not just on doing a good stand or being straight up and down, but being able to come in and out, fold in and out, and make it a very active and smooth kind of thing that she can regulate. And part of that is making all the mistakes. Falling this way, falling that way. And what I'm doing with my hands is sometimes allowing her to fall all the way down, and sometimes just bringing her back in a little bit. But with as light a touch and as little as possible. And in fact, being an interference with my hands. Making life a little more difficult, so she has to keep solving and resolving and resolving that problem of regaining her balance. So one last little thought here is that in both of these situations, it's a play situation. And I think that's an important part of learning, right? The more fun it is, the more it's going to be something that she'll spontaneously take on and make her own and want to come back to, etc. But part of what's happening in these play situations is I'm keeping her in the situation. So in this, where she might immediately move out of the crawl, or might take a few steps and then take a tumble, what I'm doing is making it so that she can resolve and resolve and resolve a similar kind of movement task over and over again, rather than having to kind of reset and go and come. She may not come back to it at all for a long time. So that's part of why this play is beyond what just might happen in random activities. And if you understand that, you can use that in all kinds of your daily activities and play with her, to think in those sorts of ways.